There are times in astronomy when the universe behaves in such bizarre ways that even experienced scientists start to feel like the cosmos is intentionally toying with us. Right now, 3I Atlas is doing just that. As this interstellar traveler speeds closer to Earth, closer than it has ever been since its discovery. The object is not behaving like a typical comet drifting away from the sun. It isn't dimming, settling down, or becoming predictable. Instead, each new observation only adds to the enigma. Antitails aimed at the sun that shouldn't exist. Mass loss calculations that defy physical reasoning. Jets that seem too orderly for natural and brightness patterns that appear impossible for a rotating nucleus. Enveloped in a freely expanding coma are all revealing themselves. Furthermore, sudden adjustments in its trajectory align almost perfectly with one of the most strategically advantageous gravitational zones in the solar system. As we approach the final days before its closest encounter, one fact is becoming painfully evident. The closer 3I Atlas comes to us, the stranger it becomes, prompting us to question whether we are witnessing nature at its most extreme or something entirely different. At the outset of the video, 3E Atlas is merely 18 days away from reaching its closest proximity to Earth during its entire observation arc, coming in more than twice as near as when the Hubble Space Telescope produced the now famous image that sparked global intrigue. Unlike typical comets moving away from the sun post-perihelion, 3I Atlas isn't dimming as it should. Months ago, even at a great distance from the sun, it was already brighter and more active than anticipated. Now, as Earth gains a new geometric vantage point, some of the world's most powerful observatories, including Hubble and James Webb, are preparing to focus on it once more. Yet, even before these elite telescopes acquire fresh images, amateur astronomers worldwide are capturing an avalanche of details that were never supposed to be seen. This alone raises the stakes for what December's encounter may unveil. The role of amateur astronomers has taken center stage in this unfolding narrative. Backyard astrophotographers utilizing surprisingly compact telescopes are producing images of 3I Atlas that surpass the clarity of those taken from the spacecraft orbiting Mars, which we anticipated would capture stunning views during the object's flyby. The community-driven imagery isn't merely beautiful, it's transformative. It has revealed features so extraordinary and physically unlikely that global observatories have begun to readjust their observation schedules for December. What heightens the strangeness is that these anomalies did not emerge gradually. They erupted into visibility as if the object flipped a switch at perihelion, choosing not to behave like any known comet and suggesting a deeper, more unsettling origin story. Among all the anomalies surrounding 3I Atlas, the antitail remains the most astonishing because, unlike typical comet tails that always point away from the sun due to solar wind, this one is a needle-like jet aimed directly at the sun for at least 1 million kilometers. Unlike classic optical illusions that temporarily produce antitails only when Earth crosses a comet's orbital path, this object's antitail cannot be merely a matter of perspective. The evidence makes it clear. Earth never intersects 3I Atlas's orbital plane. That indicates that this structure is real and physical, sharply contradicting our current understanding of solar wind interactions. Dust or gas expelled from a natural comet should be instantly shredded by a solar wind traveling at 400 kilometers per second, the astrophysical equivalent of attempting to walk into 5,000 kilometers per hour hurricane. Yet, 3I Atlas not only withstands this solar gale, but also maintains a coherent, organized line through it. This fact alone would make the comet unprecedented. When combined with everything else, it becomes almost unbelievable. Astrophysicist Avi Loeb conducted the calculations, and the physics appear increasingly disturbing. For the antitail to maintain its structure at such a distance from the sun, its density must surpass that of the solar wind by a factor of 1 million. At that density, 3I Atlas should be losing mass at a catastrophic rate. Hundreds of tons per second, billions of tons over the course of 2 months. That accounts for 10% of the object's entire minimum mass, lost in merely weeks. Yet, 3I Atlas remains intact. It's not cracked, fragmented, or even noticeably diminished. A natural object undergoing such severe erosion should have been obliterated, so why hasn't this one been? According to Loeb's calculations, 3I Atlas should no longer exist if it were producing this antitail through natural Even NASA's lower mass estimate amplifies the paradox. If NASA is right and the nucleus is much smaller than Loeb estimates, then 3I Atlas should already have disintegrated, its solid core vaporized by the very processes seemingly shaping its vast sunward jet. Yet the object is not only surviving, it is becoming clearer, more structured, and more organized as observers keep tracking it. Something is giving coherence to the dust column ether: extreme density, extreme confinement, or a mechanism that doesn't appear in any comet textbook. This summer, 3I Atlas behaved like a solid object. Its trajectory was predictable, stable, and completely free from the non-gravitational accelerations common in natural comets due to uneven but near perihelion, precisely when no telescope could observe it, everything changed. Data revealed measurable non-gravitational acceleration. which should require more than 10% of the comet's total mass to be expelled as gas. Yet, we had already accounted for that amount just to explain the end. In simpler terms, the calculations don't add up. The comet cannot lose this much mass without disintegrating, yet the acceleration is evident. Something else is propelling it. Things become even more peculiar here. If the non-gravitational acceleration arises from gas jets, we should observe interruptions in the jet structure every 16 hours as the object rotates. However, the jets stay continuous, columnated, and laser-like. The object spins, yet the jet does not pulse. A natural comet cannot produce a perfectly stable, continuous jet unless the outgassing comes from a single fixed point. But if that were true, we would witness a regular heartbeat pattern in the antitail as the nucleus turns. Instead, there are no brakes. The jet acts as if the object isn't rotating at all even, though it is. Something about the emission appears entirely decoupled from rotation. Brightness variations between 10% and 20% arise every time 3I Atlas completes a rotation. However, according to NASA, the brightness predominantly comes from the coma, the gas cloud, surrounding the object which should not rotate with the nucleus. A rotating nucleus cannot drag the coma along with it. Yet, the brightness fluctuations correspond with rotation, suggesting that either the coma is rotating or the nucleus is interacting with the coma in a manner that contradicts standard comet behavior. The document's analysis highlights evident brightness changes in rays, astrophotography sequence variations that should be impossible according to NASA's assumptions. Currently, 3I Atlas has demonstrated so many contradictions that NASA's stance of it being just a normal comet begins to sound hollow. The object behaves like a comet in some respects and like a rigid, structured, energy-driven craft in others. Rather than acknowledging the anomalies and celebrating the discovery, NASA seems to be downplaying them, even as independent astronomers keep publishing evidence of phenomena that challenge known physics. The document strongly asserts that NASA should be thrilled about these developments. They aren't. Why? Then there's the most peculiar coincidence yet, one that nearly defies belief. On March 16, 2026, 3I Atlas will pass remarkably close to Jupiter, at a distance almost identical to Jupiter's Hill radius, the gravitational threshold where Jupiter's influence overtakes that of the Sun. This location is strategically ideal for deploying orbiters or probes for long-term observations of the Jovian system. The likelihood of a natural comet accidentally intersecting this zone is already low, but the precision is so remarkable that Loeb reached out to JPL for a comment. NASA did not respond. Within days of Loeb's inquiry, NASA discreetly revised its non-gravitational acceleration estimates, decreasing the anomaly by a factor of 6 and slightly shifting the predicted closest approach distance just outside of Jupiter's Hill radius. The timing raised immediate suspicion. Why would NASA make such a significant revision only after being notified of the coincidence? And why wasn't this change accompanied by any explanation? This revision shifted 3I Atlas from a direct interception of Jupiter's gravitational boundary to a near. However, the object's actual trajectory remains unchanged. Only the model has been adjusted. Loeb responded with an analogy that strikes harder than any accusation. When the Vatican insisted Earth was at the center of the solar system, the planets didn't alter their orbits. Just because NASA changes its model doesn't mean 3I Atlas changes its path. When the object reaches the Jovian system in March, reality will determine who is correct, not JPL's spreadsheet, and amateurs will be able to measure it themselves. If 3I Atlas were using chemical or ion propulsion, everything suddenly falls into place. Ion thrusters generate exhaust velocities thousands of times higher than those resulting from natural out. This significantly decreases the mass needed to create non-gravitational acceleration. It also clarifies the laser-like jets, explains the absence of rotational pulsing, accounts for the stability, and clarifies the brightness variations. In summary, an engineered mechanism aligns more closely with the data than natural physics does. This notion is exactly why scientific journals are hesitant to publish the analysis. The anti-coherence hints at structural organization, potentially magnetic confinement, engineered exhaust plumes, or dense metallic particles aligned along a field that remains undetected. Natural dust should scatter, broaden, and collapse almost immediately. Yet, the antitail persists for days, implying a sustained, controlled mechanism or a material with extreme density influenced by a non-random force, whether natural or artificial. 3I Atlas behaves as if it is maintaining a stable, carefully tuned trajectory, resisting solar wind, shaping jets, producing symmetrical thrust, and possibly preparing for a gravitational maneuver around Jupiter. This isn't proof of intelligence, but it is evidence that the object's behavior defies any known category of natural phenomena. Every day brings new anomalies, new images, new jet patterns, new brightness fluctuations, and new orbital irregularities. Now, with just days left until its closest approach, 3I Atlas is amplifying the strangeness of its behavior. This is more than just an interstellar object. It is a conundrum, a paradox, a visitor that is rewriting the rulebook in real time. And as it draws nearer to Earth, the universe appears to be leaning forward, whispering that something extraordinary is about to take place. As astronomers continue gathering nightly observations of 3I Atlas, a new pattern begins to emerge, one that intensifies the crisis surrounding the object's physical behavior. The previously stable, narrow sunward jet does not show the expected rotational modulation from any cometary nucleus. This contradiction is unavoidable and clear. The jets stay aligned, coherent, and uninterrupted, even as 3I Atlas completes full rotations. For a natural comet, rotation is a major disruptor. As the nucleus spins, active vents traverse through various angles, producing pulses, arcs, and discontinuous patterns within any dust or gas stream. However, 3I Atlas acts as if rotation has no impact at all. The jet remains steady, it doesn't pulse, waver, or display variability in intensity that corresponds to any rotational cycle. This forces analysts to confront an interpretation that is far more disturbing than the antitail structure alone. If the jet genuinely operates independently of rotational geometry, either the outgassing occurs in a manner that precisely compensates for rotation with unnatural accuracy, or the mechanism generating the jet is anchored to a field, a pressure system, or a confinement structure that does not physically attach to the rotating nucleus. This final possibility has quietly begun to circulate within the technical circles investigating the object. If the emission pattern is anchored to a stable reference frame that the nucleus doesn't drag along with it, then 3I Atlas behaves less like an icy fragment and more like a system, something capable of decoupling its rotational state from its emission state. While no one in the mainstream is willing to vocalize this directly, the data leaves no room for easy alternates. The jet acts as if rotation simply doesn't apply, a signature that fits no existing natural comet model. By late November, the scientific discourse surrounding 3I Atlas has evolved from isolated anomalies to an unsettling, emerging synthesis. The document clarifies that none of these bizarre behaviors in gravitational acceleration without visible mass loss. Brightness variations synchronized with rotation despite a dominant coma contribution. An antitail necessitating physically impossible density levels, stable jets ignoring rotational dynamics, and a suddenly significant approach toward Jupiter's Hill sphere can be treated as independent quirks. When examined as a collective, they imply a pattern suggesting that 3I Atlas is governed by a mechanism or physical condition that lies outside the standard taxonomy of comets. Every natural explanation collapses under the weight of yet another contradiction. If the object is small, it must be losing catastrophic amounts of mass, but it isn't. If the object is large, it cannot produce the precise acceleration observed, but it does. If the coma drives the brightness, it should not follow rotational cycles, but it does. If the jet is natural, it must pulse, but it does not. If the orbit is purely gravitational, the Jupiter coincidence is absurdly unlikely, but it happened anyway. As a result, as the object accelerates toward its closest approach, both professional and amateur analysts are increasingly echoing the same quiet thought. Perhaps this is not just a typical physical category at all. Perhaps we are facing not a larger version of what we already understand, but the first clear example of something that belongs to an entirely different class of interstellar objects, one that creates structures we do not yet comprehend, something that interacts with rotation, sunlight, and gravity in a manner that renders our current models obsolete. The closer it gets to Earth, the more the universe seems insistent that we pay attention to this reality. And now, with only days remaining until the closest approach of this interstellar visitor that defies all expectations, the truth pressing against the edges of this mystery becomes near impossible to overlook. For 3I Atlas is not simply peculiar, quirky, or unexpectedly active. Its behavior embodies a coherent pattern of contradictions that collectively challenge the foundations of everything we believed we understood about comet physics. The antitail alone should have rewritten the playbook of perfectly linear, sun-facing structure that defies solar wind dynamics and calls for densities so extreme that any natural comet would have long ago torn itself apart. Yet, 3I Atlas remains intact, structured, and alarmingly stable. The mass loss equations contradict the nucleus's survival. The non-gravitational acceleration contradicts the absence of visible jets. The continuous jet alignment contradicts the rotation that should fragment it into pulses. The brightness fluctuations contradict the notion that the coma dominates the luminosity curve. Even the object's trajectory edges toward the unlikely, skimming within mathematical inches of Jupiter's Hill sphere, like a stone gliding along the rim of a cosmic trap set for orbital capture. Each individual anomaly constitutes a puzzle, yet together they form a message, one of revelation. Not intent to revelation that the universe continues to be filled with physical regimes, structural principles, and mechanisms we have yet to identify, let alone understand. The closer 3I Atlas approaches Earth, the more its behavior resists being classified into any known category. as if the object itself is compelling us to confront the limits of natural explanation. This moment holds a frightening beauty in the potential realization that humanity may be witnessing the first confirmed instance of a class of interstellar bodies we have yet to encounter. Objects that do not adhere to the simplistic binaries of comet versus asteroid, natural versus engineered, dust versus jets, but something far richer, weirder, and far more intricate. Whether 3I Atlas turns out to be a fragment of an exoplanet's metallic core, an interstellar rocky body wrapped in unknown volatiles, a magnetically structured ejector system, or something our scientific vocabulary has yet to invent, one fact has already become irrefutable. This object has surpassed every model we have tried to impose upon it. It has made the solar system feel small again, mysterious again, alive again, and as it speeds toward its December encounter growing brighter, sharper, and more defiant, with every frame we capture it leaves us with a singular, electrifying truth. The universe is not finished surprising us. Whatever occurs next, whatever new anomaly is revealed tomorrow, or as it hurtles past Earth and enters Jupiter's domain, one certainty remains. The tale of 3I Atlas is not merely about a comet. It is about the moment humanity comprehended that our models were too limited, our expectations far too timid, and our understanding woefully incomplete. The cosmos has bestowed upon us a visitor from another star system, and it becomes more enigmatic with each passing hour, as if inviting us or perhaps challenging us to keep looking.